Hello, and welcome to More to the Story with Molly White. I am so glad you joined me today. And I want to introduce my co-host, but before I do, I want to give a shout out to Dr. Stephen Hotze with the Hotze Health and Wellness Center for being our show's sponsor. We really couldn't do this without him, and so we're really grateful for his sponsorship, and we invite you to sponsor the show as well, because this show, this podcast is really educating the uninformed, it's reaching the lost, it's saving lives, and it's healing, leading those who are hurting from abortion to recovery and to the Lord. So, your sponsorship or your donations would be greatly appreciated to help us keep this podcast going with professionalism. And now I'd like to introduce my wonderful, fabulous co-host who took over for me last week, Mary Browning. Come on in, Mary.
Hello, Molly. So glad for you to be back. It's good to be on the show again. And as we usually do, we want to mention to our listeners and our viewers that today we will be having a story about the experience of abortion. So if you're listening and you have young people listening with you, you may want to make some adjustments. And if you're listening and you have participated in some way or have a connection with abortion, you might find yourself triggered today. And if you do, we would tell you that we see that if you have an emotional reaction to something that's said beyond what you think is normal, then that may be an invitation for you to receive and step into another level of healing. We'll have opportunities for that during the show, but we do want to mention the H3 helpline. You can call them at 866-721-7881, and they will be able to connect you with help. The workers on those lines all have abortion in their past, and they can help you talk through it. Thank you, Molly.
Amen. Isn't it nice to have a helpline like that that's available 24/7 to anyone across the country that is suffering from their abortion decision or needs help because they had an abortion and they're looking for recovery. So I encourage everyone to use that number if you need it. Well, Mary, we have a great guest on our show today. Missy Smith is from the DC area. I haven't seen her in years, but we've known each other for many decades. And she is and has been a leader in pro-life work for a long time. She's what I called one of us women who have the breaker anointing. We have broken through places that no one has broke through before, being women who've had abortions and now pro-life. So Missy Smith, come on in and welcome to the show.
Thank you, ladies. So nice to see you both.
It's nice to see you too. I see you mostly on Facebook, so
yeah, it's good to see you. And Mary, it's wonderful. I've heard wonderful things about you. So nice to see you both.
Yes, I have you. Thank you.
Thank you.
We're so excited about
it. Yes.
This is such an honor to be here with you guys.
Well, it's an honor for us too, Missy. And listen, I think let's just kind of go back to, tell our backstory a little bit, because you're very involved in pro-life work and you've been dedicated, I'm sure, several decades of dedication to this. But where did all this begin? Where, tell us, about why you got involved in pro-life work.
Well, it started out, my own testimony was when my first marriage was fell apart. I had two tiny toddlers, and I did meet a man that fell in love with me and asked me to marry him, and I got pregnant, and he was terrified. I think he had had a family situation that had really made him leery of going, and I have to say, he coerced me into having an abortion, and it was really the worst thing that had ever happened to me. It was just a horrible, horrible thing. And I kind of went underground about it. And I don't know if either of you felt this way. We haven't talked about it, Molly, but as the years went on, there's almost a psychological shift, and you kind of are pussyfooting around well, I guess it's all right. Because we didn't have sonograms at the time. I mean, it's so long ago. And we didn't know. But one thing that happened that was really remarkable, and it changed the course of my life, was that our 19-year-old son had a heart attack at school and died.
Oh,
And so, I went on, I thought to myself, well, I was raised Catholic. I know where he is. He's in heaven. He was the purest soul. So I knew that he was in heaven. I had no worry about that. But right on the heels of that, I went to Medjugorje, which on a spiritual pilgrimage. And when I came back, it was like boom, boom, boom. I mean, the Holy Spirit was just pushing me through one door after another. And I picked up I picked up the phone. It was my brother, Brian, and he was sitting in the parking lot at Brooks Brothers, and he was reading an article in the Washington Times on the editorial page by Mona Sharon, who is a syndicated columnist. And it was "The Trafficking of Baby Body Parts" was the name of the article.
wow. This was
And
way back in the day.
that was 98. And
Wow.
so what Mona Sharon had done was she had seen an article in the American Enterprise Institute by Mark Crutcher. Do you remember Mark
I
Crutcher?
do. I do know Mark Crutcher.
You could never have a phone conversation with him that was less than 2 hours, right? Do you
Yeah,
remember?
I've been
He
on his
was
show
a
too.
wealth
Yeah.
of information. He was a great,
Yes.
great man. But anyway, I didn't know him at the time, but I read the article by Mona, and I was horrified because the reality that even with a first trimester baby with an abortion, I mean, they have a beating heart, they have little hands and feet, and it didn't hit me until I read the article. If they can sell baby body parts to, I mean, they're 4,000 at the time. There were 4,000 NIH research labs that were buying these
Wow.
babies. So I was absolutely, I was hysterical. I called a friend of mine, Maureen Flynn, who has the apostolate, The Signs and Wonders of Our Times. And I said, we have to do something. This is outrageous. I thought I had the silver bullet. I thought for sure that when women found out that their babies were being sold for body parts like a car, I thought, this is it. That's fine. Well, that was, of course, going on 30 years ago, and it hasn't changed people's minds. But in any event, that got me started. We got together, 4 other women and myself, and we prayed actually for an acronym, came up with WAKE UP, Women Against the Killing and Exploitation of Unprotected Persons.
Wow.
So wake up was something that I had heard numerous times by the Blessed Mother in her messages, was saying, all of you are like you're sleepwalking,
Hmm.
wake up, wake
Yeah.
up. So that started me. I was speaking, writing articles. Actually, I went down to court to see Dean Alberti Jr., who was the person that had come to Mark Crutcher and said that he was a fetal tissue retrieval technician. And he was
Wow.
working in, uh, it wasn't a Planned Parenthood, but he was working in a killing place.
Wow.
And so Mark said to him, go back to work. And if you can pull up the article, it's very graphic. I mean,
Mm.
he was at one time, and he was not that bright. He didn't realize what he was getting into. And
Okay, I'm sorry, I just want to stop for a minute. So you had an abortion when you were how old?
probably 24.
Hmm.
And had been married, but that fell apart. You had two little ones, you got pregnant, and then by
Coerced
somebody
her.
else, and he coerced you, because we hear a lot of stories about women where it was never their choice.
Right.
And
That's
then
true.
when one of your children then was 19, so I'm just wondering if
I got married
you got
again.
married.
Did you
Did
marry
you
the
carry?
baby's father?
I did.
Okay. So y'all
Okay.
got married and then you lost your son.
At 19.
And
And
it
then
was,
Go
that
ahead,
was
Mary.
quite a
Yep.
shock. So
Yeah.
married.
Oh, I can imagine. It's very traumatizing even just to hear it.
so
Um,
when you were kind of raw with that sort of loss, then you found out about, I just want to be sure I'm understanding what you're saying, and that is that when you found out about what was happening to the fetal body parts, it was like on the backdrop of having lost one son and with the pain of the other child that you knew that you were also missing. Is
Yes,
that correct? Okay, I just
that's
want to
correct.
try to
That's correct.
connect the dots,
The
making sure I'm
compilation of it was really what catapulted me into activism. When
activism.
I realized,
so
because honestly, even when I was forced to have the abortion, I emotionally and it's such a trauma that your body really reacts to it, and it's terrible. I don't know about you ladies, but most women tell you that you have terrible depression.
right.
I
It's
had
very
never been.
traumatic. Very
Yes, it's
traumatic.
very traumatic, and your body can't deny it.
Right.
It's there.
Your body or
So
your emotions, nothing can deny it, really. You
yes,
know,
but
it's
what the icing on the cake really was realizing, because I was still, even though you think it's a life, I didn't comprehend that it was actually a baby until the report came, until Mona Sharon's article came out in the Washington Times saying that this was $1 billion business.
wow.
$1 billion was being
I,
made
I
off of.
just I have to pause because we've heard about David Daleiden and his undercover
Yeah,
work, and I'll be honest, I thought that was just the beginning of our
I know.
knowledge in that area. So I'm just a little bit stunned that we've known that for a very long time now.
And this article was in 98. And who was it written by? Because I would like to look it up.
Mona Sharon. I think it was November 13th, but it was 1999.
Wow, just not
No,
even a year. It's just now November 15th. Yeah.
So
98 or
years.
99. But anyway,
99.
so that kind of, like Mary was saying, you've had a, a loss from your abortion, even though you had not dealt with it, you had not connected with that. Then that traumatic loss of your son. And then sounds like shortly afterwards, your brother telling you about this article. That's kind of triggering,
Yes. The whole thing was just,
yeah.
I was in a state of shock. That was November. We got together on December 8th with the other women and created Wake Up.
Wake up. Hmm.
Okay,
And
what other women were these?
one was a lawyer, one was an owner of the Silver Diners, one ran a pregnancy center, and then the one has her own apostolate, the Signs and Wonders of Our Times.
Okay.
Okay, and were those women did they have abortion in their past, or they were just women that wanted to
No, I
stand
don't
with
believe
you?
Yeah.
that I know of. I
Hmm.
was the only
Okay.
one.
They were going to stand with you and on this issue, for the
Yeah,
issue of
I
life.
think
Okay.
they were horrified.
Mm.
I mean, this
Oh,
was a
yeah.
revelation that, although ultimately when I was speaking in Connecticut, I did get a talk by Bernard Nathanson, and he talked about the outrageous, trafficking of baby body parts.
Mm.
So I think that within the medical community, there was a realization that, aborted babies were being used in an unethical way.
Wow. Back in 98, that's shocking.
Yeah.
And
So
so from the wake up, I think you mentioned something about, was that trying to bring awareness? Are you trying to file a lawsuit, or what was the
well, at
goal for
that
wake up?
time, I was really, I was able to get a tax exempt, 107, 501c3 for Wake Up on it for education.
Okay,
So
education
that was
purposes.
all my intent was to educate. Because again, keep in mind, I thought I had the silver bullet. I thought no one would abort their babies if they
Right.
realized that those babies' body part. Because I was still thinking in my mind that it wasn't a baby. I mean, it
It
might have been
wasn't formed
like,
yet. Hmm.
but wasn't formed. Then I read that. I mean, Dean Alberti talked about one of the abortionists coming in with twins
Oh.
in in a bowl, and he said, "Here, you know, dissect these." He said, "No, that's not in my contract. I won't do it."
Mm.
And they're alive. They were alive.
Oh.
They were moving, and he said, "No,
Oh.
no, I won't do that." So the abortionist took a vial of water and poured it over them, and they drowned. And he said, "Okay, now do that. Take
Oh.
them." So I mean, the article is very graphic, and so you'll read a lot of things that just horrify you.
Wow.
But it is an insight which we didn't have before, and we didn't have sonograms. So,
Hmm.
we were relying on the doctors who I have to say would tell me, it's the baby's not moving. I would say the baby's moving. Oh no, you don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So we weren't getting
They,
straight.
they, the abortion industry is not based on truth and scientific and medical facts when it comes to dealing with the women that come into their clinics. They're not about that.
But even my OBGYN would say, and he's not, I mean, I didn't think he was an abortionist. I went to him, and I was pregnant with other children, and they would,
Yeah,
and
you're right. I think you were trying to get the point across that they didn't know because there was no sonograms at that time.
right,
Okay.
that's right.
Okay.
So anyway, I continued to give talks on the trafficking of baby body parts and to write articles, and even though it didn't seem to move the needle in terms of, but then there was sidewalk counseling, and there was activism, and face the truth tours and all kinds of things. So
Did you ever
um,
go through abortion recovery, Missy?
I don't believe that I did, except I was involved with a lot of post-abortive organizations, and with priests and therapists and all kinds of that, but I didn't go to Rachel's Vineyard.
Hmm. But you
So,
healed along the way, I'm sure, with all of
well,
this.
yeah, there was a lot, when there was a lot of with doctors, priests, there was a lot of conversation. So I think it was pretty healing. I mean,
Yeah.
to be surrounded by women who, for instance, the women of Operation Outcry, very, very holy women who, when I came down to do Faces of Abortion, just the most lovely women.
Mhm.
All of them were so kind, and just speaking with them and being around them, and they were just very inspiring. I always felt that the women of Operation Outcry were amazing women.
They
So
are amazing women. When you're saved, delivered, and healed, you can't help but be,
yeah,
be a light in this world. You just can't help that, and you've been a very vital part of that. So let's kind of move on to you got, and actually the Lord just knew He took you right where you were at and used you mightily. And so, from educating and doing all of that, tell us about some of the sacrifices that you have made to save lives. And I'm talking about your uh, uh,
Brushes with the law.
oh,
yeah, yeah. I was trying to
well,
figure out how to say it.
I thought
yeah,
you
well,
were.
the street activism led me to be involved with Randall Terry, and Randall is great for street activism and theater, and we were constantly on Capitol Hill and in front of the White House, and at that time it wasn't all fenced off like it is now. So we could really go close to the White House, and we did videos, and it was inspiring, interesting. We made a mark so that but part of that too was we were saying some prayers for 100 days before Obama took office, right at the White House. And every day we would meet and pray the rosary. And of course, then we found out that Obama was being honored at Notre Dame, which is supposed to be the premier Catholic university in America.
Yeah.
And so Randall packed up his little 4 boys and his wife and drove to Notre Dame, to South Bend, and got someone donated a house very near Notre Dame, and he set up an office, and it had bedrooms so people could come and stay. And then he was in an RV, so he and his wife and the 4 kids would stay at an RV camp. And I wasn't really planning to go, but Alan Keyes asked me to come, and I love Alan, and
Yeah.
I thought, well, all right, so you'll love this. I said to my husband, who was a practicing attorney, and he had taken a very small law firm, national, and then ultimately international. And his father was a judge, and he obviously is an attorney. He was a bailiff as a teenager, so he had all this law in his background, as well as I did, actually. And because my father was an administrative judge, and I have so many siblings, I think 6 or 8, that are lawyers. I mean, so anyway, when Alan called me, I went into my husband and I said, would you mind if I went to Notre Dame and to protest the, Obama, who was the greatest promoter of child killing in the world, and he was being honored at a Catholic school, and it had to be, one of the premier Catholic colleges. So my husband said, well, all right, but just don't get arrested. And I said, well, have you ever heard of Martin Luther King and the letters from Birmingham jail? And he looked at me kind of, And I said, have you ever heard of Jesus Christ getting arrested? And
the apostles.
All right, Missy, he said, go ahead. So I went, and the interesting thing was, I said to Randall, well, I'll come up next week. He said, no. I have to have you here tomorrow to walk in to Notre Dame with Alan. And he's never been arrested. I said, well, I've never been arrested either. But anyway, so I did really fly out that day, did some laundry and packed up and left, and was there to walk in the next day. And with the intent that, it is peaceful, but it is a powerful message to get arrested and go to jail. And so I did. And the next week I came back. I wasn't intending to get arrested, but Father Weslin was there, and he went down. I didn't realize at that time that he, as well as others, when they do that, they're really being helpless, like the baby in the womb. I thought he'd had a heart attack. So I had my little flip phone, and my daughter from California was saying, I answered it, and she said, Mom, get off the campus. You've done, it's on Fox. I see you. Go ahead, get off the campus before you get arrested. And I said, but Father Weslin's on the ground. I think he's had a heart attack. So I hung up, and the next thing I know, one of the police was handcuffed me, and off I went to jail for the second time. So, it was.
They had a revolving door. That's the price that we have to pay sometimes. And I want our listeners to understand that what God calls us to do might not always be easy, but it's always very rewarding. And even if you get arrested, God's going to make a way. But I don't want anyone to be fearful. We have just a couple minutes left, so we're going to continue this podcast with our guest Missy Smith, because we still have so much more to get to. So we're going to be ending in a couple minutes, but please stay tuned for the next show, because she's going to be right back on with us. But I just want our viewers not to be afraid. Don't be afraid to speak about your abortion. Don't be afraid to save a life, to encourage a pregnant woman not to have an abortion. Don't be afraid to go to an abortion clinic and stand on the sidewalk and encourage women that are going in to reconsider. Tell them that they're going to be a good mother. Tell them that, that motherhood is the best. Don't be afraid to do that, because the rewards far outweigh any kind of inconvenience, like being arrested.
Yeah.
The rewards
Well,
really do far outweigh that. So we might have maybe about a minute or so. Missy, is there something you want to say before we make this a part 2?
Well, just I think that to back up what you're saying is that so many uh, women, whether they're post-abortive, they have said so often, if just one person was there. I mean, we have all the help that we can give them. Many of us have contacts for money and gift cards and follow up and sonograms. And even if you've taken the first pill
Right.
to the
yes.
RU47,
There's help to have it reversed. Yes.
yes, yes. We have Planned Parenthood down on 4th Street and very close by. I don't know if you know of Sister Dr. Didi. She is a doctor, and she has a clinic, an OBGYN clinic, and she has saved 78% of the women who we bring to
Wow.
her, and that she comes and is a presence there. But again,
Right.
substantiating what you're saying, Molly, it's very little effort. I mean, many women, they just want to be encouraged because they know in their heart there's somebody driving that abortion, usually,
Right.
most of the time, the majority of the time.
Yeah. And they know, even if they try to deny it, their heart's telling them different. But it really just takes one voice. I'm telling you, Missy, you said something that very resonates with me. If there would have been one person outside the clinic where I went and said, "You'll be a great mother," or "Don't do this," or "You'll regret it," whatever, it would have snapped me out of my denial, out of my state of being. Of course, I needed questions answered, and they didn't. So, but we don't have any more time right now. Missy, thank you for being on part 1. Now I want everyone to know we're going to continue this conversation, because Missy has a lot to talk about, her experience on the radio and a lawsuit that she's involved in, and we want to know all about that. So we want you to come back and join us again later this week for part 2 with Missy Smith. Mary, thank you so much for coming on and being with me. And thank y'all for tuning in to More to the Story with Molly White. And we will see you for part 2. Thank you. Bye-bye.